account. Just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
Yeah. Roberta in the truth zone, mic hitting raw. Spotlight shining, she exposing the flaw. Debunking the myth, breaking their facade. This is Glass City, respect the squad. On these NYC blocks where the skyline flex big. Roberta Glass slicing lies with a truth rig. Innocence frosters, your stories unravel. She's a map through the madness of gritty gravel. Glass don't bend and facts don't break. She's a storm that's called, you feel the quake. Exposing tales stitched with crooked seams. Justice in the lens, shattered fake dreams. Dreams about killers, painted heroes in disguise. She burning propaganda with fire in her eyes. No glamour for the guilty, she call it straight. She backs victims, the voice stay awake. Stats and receipts, no spin, no clutter. Cold cases whisper, she cuts through the mutter. Truth's her tempo, don't confuse the beat. She's standing for the real while you taking a seat. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time to play. She's glass hard, break the false and save the day. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time.
Hold on. Hold on. How is everybody? I'm talking. I'm like, why isn't anybody saying hello? Hello. Hello, Ellen. Hello, Taterbug. Hello, Markar. Hello, my king of kings. Hi, everybody. Glad we connected. Wow. Let's talk about today in court. And I found it, I don't know about anyone else. I can tell by I'm just looking at the amount of views. Where is everybody? I think it exhausted everybody. I think everybody found it tedious. It's just us chickens in here. Everybody found it tedious, I think. It was another day of cross-examination, if you missed it, of Ironman. That's what I like to call him because he's so powerful on the stand. He's a former Marine, Sergeant Yuri Bukhenik, came from the Ukraine, immigrated here to Massachusetts, then went into the Marines, then went to California, but was not really explained what he was doing there, but then came back. Maybe he became a police officer, then a sergeant in Massachusetts. He was overseeing this investigation, and he was powerful on the stand last time. He's powerful on the stand this time. Thought it was a poor choice, but the defense seems desperate. And also, I think the defense is really, I think someone put it well in my chat today, the Reeds seem to be really running the defense. They want it as cruel, as aggressive as possible, just the more forceful and aggressive and nasty Alan Jackson is and badgering he is to every single witness. I think the more Daddy Reed and his murderer client, Karen Reed, thinks that they're doing a good job. But I've said this before, I'll say it again. When you go after everyone, it loses its power. I mean, the jury has to be thinking, is everyone the enemy? And I don't think these things are landing the way they landed last time. So we had the Sally Port video today, and in a desperate attempt to develop third-party culprit, we watched these ridiculous videos and pictures of Brian Higgins. So what we're supposed to think, okay, this is the defense's theory, that Brian Higgins, after committing murder, wanted to go to the police department and move cars around the lot in the snow. I mean, really? It's like, I'll just go back to my job and move cars around like he did every time so they don't get snowed in. So we watched these ridiculous videos. Let me just show you. Hold on, let me pull it up. Of Brian Higgins moving cars around the lot. And I was thinking, what are those tests where there's like a psychological test where you look at dots, ink blot tests? That's what it seemed like to me. Like, what do you see in this picture? If you're a free Karen reader and you've been indoctrinated and really bought into this campaign for whatever reason, either you're a criminal yourself and you want to see a criminal get off, you know, you're already seeing, it's because Brian Higgins is a cop, you already see someone you think, you know, you should be put away. A lot of these people hate cops, but I mean, he's just walking around. He has his phone up to his ear. He could be listening to his messages. I love when people assume he's on the phone. Could be listening to his messages. He could be on the phone. He could be keeping his ear warm. Improbable, but maybe. We just don't know. So we saw all this all this video. Of Brian Higgins, you know, moving things around. And it was just kind of, I don't know, did it land with the jury? Did the jury even make sense of it? Or did they even get it? So just to give you an idea what we were looking at, and then I'm going to go into the filings that came in this morning, because they're important and they're actually really compelling, pretty fascinating, and show some really smart lawyering by Hank Brennan in this case. So let's look here. So just to give you an idea of some of the stuff we saw, just to go through, like here are some of the pictures. This is what we're looking at here. Okay, so let me see if I can.
With the court's permission, I'd ask that what's been marked as GG, at least the first video, be published for the jurors.
All right, so there are 4 videos on this flash drive?
One video, 4 different camera angles as it's set from the one video.
Are you ready to see this now? I thought you wanted to review it.
I'll agree, and I have that problem. No problem.
All right, so for the first one, the first camera angle?
Correct.
Okay.
It's one video, but 4 different angles.
All right, we just have to keep a record. That's why I'm
Understood.
asking all these
It's a little
questions.
complicated, I get it.
All right, we can do that.
Thank you. And this is, Your Honor, just for the record, actually, let me do it this way. Sergeant, would you agree that we can call this the rear lot main side at Canton PD, just for identification purposes?
Sure, if you'd like. I don't know which side.
Right, and this wasn't Bukhenik doing these things. He's like, well, it appears he's on his phone. I don't know. It appears he's on his phone. Is he listening to messages? Is he doing something else? Here's another one. Doesn't this look like?
What do you see on the video at this point?
Are they doing this because it looks important? I mean, this is like some guy doing mundane tasks around the police department. I mean, they caught him doing something vaguely. He's walking in down the hallways. Is it because it's black and white? Did they make this? Did microdots get to this and make it look like, was this the way it's shot? With the snow, does it make him look more menacing? The hooded figure walking around. Because I think the really good point, and I'll get to it, is, so here's another one. They seem to pick the stuff where it's like He's a lone silhouette figure. That make him look more menacing? Here he is walking down the hallway. Hold on. This is their great evidence. I mean, I'm surprised this got in at all. It just seems, I mean, they're allowed to, with a Bowden defense, but they haven't even developed third party. But I mean, they're doing this under the guise of asking, Bukhenik doesn't know anything about this. And I would have thought that Hank Brennan would have objected to all this coming in. I mean, it's just inconsequential. But it looks like from the filings that, yeah, this is the final clip and he got to explain that the Sally Port videos, that all the Sally Port videos from January 1st on were recorded that way, inverted. And, you know, if you look at a YouTube video, I know that Americans, the driver, it's inverted too. We look at it in a mirror image. Those videos are inverted too, or mirrored too. Haven't you ever seen someone in a driver's seat and they look like they're on the passenger seat? Frequently. So I don't know what it just, but great filings by Hank Brennan this morning. Commonwealth's motion to preclude inadmissible hearsay under the guise of Bowden defense. So evidence that certain texts were not conducted, that certain police procedures were not followed, or that certain information known to the police about another suspect were not investigation is circumstances in which it was reasonable to expect that the police should have conducted such tests, followed such procedures, or investigated such information is admissible. And they cite Hank Brennan and co. cite the Massachusetts Evidence Code here. However, a defendant does not have an unfettered right to elicit evidence regarding the adequacy of the police investigation. The admissibility of such evidence hinges first and foremost on its relevance. Commonwealth versus Moore. Judge properly exercised discretion. Okay, this is this case. Abrogated on other grounds by Commonwealth versus Moore. Judge properly exercised discretion to exclude third-party culprit evidence as part of a Bowden defense where defense counsel pro-offered did not demonstrate that the probative weight of the Bowden evidence exceeded the risk of unfair prejudice. While Bowden preserved the defendant's right to attack the adequacy of the police investigation, that attack is still constrained by the rules of evidence. Nothing in the Bowden case authorizes a defendant to introduce otherwise inadmissible hearsay. So this sounds like the judge allowed all this in because all we heard about today was Higgins walking around and moving cars. I mean, if anything, it shows he's dedicated to his job and wouldn't want to lose it by, say, murdering someone over a woman he wasn't that into. I mean, can we all see that Higgins was not that into Karen Reed? The defense has failed to establish that certain information, particularly confidential materials provided by the United States Attorney's Office in February 2024, were known to Sergeant Yuri Bukhenik, or that in these circumstances it would have been reasonable for police to investigate such information. For example, the federal government's decision to obtain cell phone records of an investigator and civilian does not fall within the parameters of Bowden. But he did ask about that, especially when there's never been a showing that those cell phone records were material or relevant to the investigation under Bowden. The question repeatedly pro-offered by the defense are an improper attempt to admit otherwise inadmissible evidence. Exactly. They have nothing. So they've been trying to develop a third-party culprit on nothing, on nothing burgers, like Brian Higgins walking around and moving cars. But I thought the more interesting part Similarly, okay, I'll just go on. Similarly, if the defense intends to claim the police lost or destroyed evidence, the defense bears the initial burden to establish a reasonable possibility based on concrete evidence rather than a fertile imagination. Well, a fertile imagination, you've just described the entire defense strategy. It came from a fertile imagination. Given the defense strategy is to ask repeated, improper and argumentative questions, a curative instruction is insufficient. Therefore, the Commonwealth requests a voir dire hearing of Sergeant Bukhenik for the court to determine whether the areas of the defendant's pro-offer of opponent evidence is admissible before evidence and argumentative is made to the jury. So there was this voir dire today, and all this evidence, I guess they intended to bring in, got thrown out. But the general, how do I say this? I mean, the whole cross-examination for the past 3 days from Alan Jackson has been like this, whether they're asking, I don't know. I mean, it just seems to sum up the entire defense strategy. I don't even know how they're getting away with it. And it's like Jackson is testifying up there, making constant comments. And he gets reprimanded, and then he does it again. He gets reprimanded and does it again. His question gets struck down, and then he'll ask it again and again and again. Pretty much the same question. He just got struck down. I mean, all these things make me think that he's doing this so that the jury will remember it. You know, this kind of repetition of questions that they're even though that they've been asked to ignore it, that they'll remember it or it will stick in their mind as something important. But just wanted to show you here, Yuri Bukhenik. This was the most fascinating part of the day. Had to be when Yuri Bukhenik talked about, and this is Alan Jackson in this voir dire, about the witness harassment campaign that was spearheaded by Karen Reed and her lawyers. Take a listen. It was a massive fail for Jackson. He's talking about Proctor and how a picture of Proctor's, I believe it was his niece and nephew, correct me if I'm wrong, was put up on social media as the Alberts children.
Yeah, so
Do I have that right?
thank you. Yeah, since I authored the report, I wrote following formal introductions since I've never met them before.
Okay, so that was more intended to you than to Michael Proctor.
Correct.
Okay, but the report does say we introduced ourselves, basically. Following formal introductions.
Greeted, but I had formal introductions to them. I've never met them before in my life.
You said that subsequently you learned about your word accusations that had been made concerning possible relationship between Michael Proctor and the Alberts. What was that information that you learned?
When was it? I need that.
When did you learn it? I thought you said 2023, but I could be wrong. When did you learn that?
It was I believe, during the July motion proceedings when you guys had pictures up of children.
July of what year?
I believe 2023.
Okay. And what was it that you learned in July of 2023 about the potential?
The accusations?
Yeah.
That those were.
This is when we call him this is why we call him the Iron Man. He's taking no crap from Alan Jackson. That's when you had pictures up of kids, you and your defense team, with the help of your little disgraced blogger, in an attempt to get your murderous clients. Use children, pictures of children, put them up on the internet. Love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Albert's or McCabe's kids in the photograph with Michael Proctor?
Okay. Did you ever learn about personal communications that Michael Proctor or his wife may have had with any of the Albert family, including Julie Albert?
Ever?
Ever.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me when you learned that and what you learned in that order.
Well, Michael Proctor had communicated with those individuals. Oh, excuse me. Elizabeth Proctor communicated with those individuals due to the harassment that they've sustained.
Okay.
So with the crazy behavior that's been, imposed on them, and the torturous harassment that they've endured, the traumatic experiences they've had to live through, they've communicated. So I've learned about that. Yes, I was taking in all
The torturous experiences they've had to endure. This was all done, just to clarify, outside the presence of the jury. But strangely, the press didn't run with this. They didn't run with this. I was looking at the wrap-ups. It's all about, well, we know the Sallyport video, and we know that I have to show you the way they reported on it, but nothing about this. Nothing about this. They'll never go after these. They're such innocence fraudsters. They'll never talk about these corrupt lawyers and the way that they're behaving in this case. In this innocence fraud campaign. It's like stone silence. And then, I'll show it in a second. You got to see it, the way they sum this up.
all of that evidence, hundreds and pieces of evidence that I've archived in order to
Go ahead. In order to.
investigate it.
Okay. You're talking about Elizabeth Proctor well after the fact of the interview and the incident in 2022. That's what you were just describing.
It was after the harassment started.
After the harassment started, again, we hear about the harassment campaign. It's not too boring for the press because the press went all through all the boring pictures of the Sallyport. I mean, that was like extremely boring. But here's the WNBC. Listen to this. Hold on. Let's see if I can get the end of it. He's talking about the Sallyport video being inverted and, how, making a good point, which I've just echoed, that, we're used to watching a lot of video inverted, but this is WNBC, but look at the way they describe Michael Proctor. Take a listen.
You go. We'll see you on the news at 6, and that's where you'll find me as
Oh, hold on. I've gone too far. Just right at the end. Here you go.
to take out the victim, not Karen Reed. What's coming up tomorrow?
Sorry. Here we go.
Wouldn't be on the side of the broken tail light. Instead, they would be on the side of the tail light that's not broken in
Right.
the inverted video.
We all watch videos on Instagram and TikTok, and they're backward.
Right. I've just echoed that very point. But here he goes. He talks about
Lead investigator for the whole case was Proctor. Proctor was fired for misbehavior and mismanagement. Higgins.
misbehavior and mismanagement. Misbehavior. Where's the mismanagement? Misbehavior. Totally. Mismanagement means that he didn't manage this case well, for driving drunk and writing mean texts. Why don't they go into the specifics? That sounds like he actually mismanagement, that he actually lost evidence or did something really wrong in this case. Can you imagine if big mistakes were made in this case? All these mistakes that they say are mistakes were really quite ingenious ways of dealing with just not having what they needed in a nor'easter. I mean, you can get on the department for not having evidence bags and et cetera, and proper, I don't know, but it made no difference at all to anything. So it's just, I mean, if you were listening to that, you would really think that he did something seriously wrong that affected the evidence in this case, when it didn't affect anything. Also, there's also another filing by the Commonwealth, and we know that the next witness is Kaylee, and I'm not going to go on too long today. I'm going to keep it short. Is John O'Keefe's niece, who's a minor, so we're not going to see it. So I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to deal with it tomorrow morning. I think I'll just probably keep it up and just keep a banner up and wait till it may be, I'm not sure how long. I would think it would be, I don't know how long she's going to testify for. And I wonder if the second witness, we may have no testimony that we hear tomorrow. Second witness may be his nephew who lived in the home. But some of the things we heard last time was Karen Reed and John O'Keefe fought all the time, that Karen Reed was a very difficult person to be around, that she would get mad at them for the smallest of things. If she felt they weren't grateful enough, she would get mad at them. And we may hear about her being asked to leave the home 2 days before John O'Keefe was murdered and refusing. By John O'Keefe asked Karen Reed to leave his home, and she refused. We may hear about that via the mouth of Babes, the niece and nephew, John O'Keefe's, the children he was raising, his niece and nephew, his sister Kristen's children. So here, the Commonwealth moves to admit testimony through participant witness who observed the defendant and the victim's volatile and hostile relationship as it existed at the time of the victim's death. 4 weeks prior to the murder, the defendant became enraged at the victim for speaking to a female friend who was on their group vacation in Aruba and accused the victim of having an affair. This incident was observed by numerous individuals who will testify to their personal observation of this incident, as well as to statements of the defendant in the immediate aftermath. Now, this may be because Alan Jackson elicited testimony from Bukhenik saying that he thought Karen Reed going after Higgins was revenge for John O'Keefe sleeping with someone in Aruba, which he didn't. So I think they're asking to bring in witnesses from Aruba, perhaps the Sullivan sisters, to talk about Karen Reed and her really awful and volatile behavior in Aruba, where she's saying F you at a woman she just met. And John O'Keefe said to someone, she's just crazy. I mean, he sort of had to apologize for her. Evidence of the defendant's prior bad acts may be admissible to prove opportunity, intent, preparation, plan, knowledge, pattern of operation, or common scheme or course of conduct, as long as the probative value of the evidence is not outweighed by the risk of an unfair prejudice. The determination to admit such evidence based on timelines, place, character, or probative value is one for the trial judge to make, and will be reversed on review only if palpably wrong. Evidence of the Aruba incidents was pro-offered by the defendant through a series of text messages between the defendant and Brian Higgins, thus opening the door for the Commonwealth to rebut the defendant's misleading and inaccurate claims about what had happened, what had occurred, weeks prior in Aruba. This incident in Aruba seems to also be the turning point in the relationship, as the defendant told Brian Higgins that her relationship with the victim was a very effed up situation, as she had observed the victim all over a friend's sister in the lobby of our hotel and accused the victim of having hooked up with another girl while in Aruba. In January 29, 2022 voicemails previously entered into evidence, the defendant screams at the victim for apparently effing another girl and repeatedly refers to the victim as a pervert. There has also been evidence that prior to arriving at 34 Fairview Road, there was reference to a woman the victim used to date. The defendant pro-offered the entirety of the text messages between herself and Brian Higgins, including the defendant's admissions about her feelings towards the victim and the nature of their relationship. The evidence proffered by the defendant also demonstrates a continuing animosity in the weeks and days prior to the victim's death. I mean, after she leaves John to die, after she backs into John with her car and leaves him to die in the cold, her heinous death. She writes to Brian Higgins, John's dead. Like, hey, free now, John's dead. What? The jury should be permitted to hear from the witnesses of this Aruba incident who will rebut the characterizations made by defendant to Brian Higgins. Such testimony would be offered through Laura Sullivan, Marietta Sullivan, Erin O'Keefe is coming in, and juvenile, we know, and this is KF, so that's the niece. In a domestic violence homicide, evidence such as prior disputes are relevant to show the volatile nature of the relationship between the defendant and the victim in the weeks and months preceding the murder, to explain the defendant's intent and state of mind towards the victim. So, curious to see if this may be stretched out even longer. Karen Reed had said, there's only a handful of Commonwealth witnesses left. We may see more witnesses coming in who were on the witness list, but I know that. So curious to see more witnesses coming in. Please hit the thumbs up, guys. If you're in, let's get this, juice the algorithm a bit. I'm going to take a quickie break. And when I get back, we're going to talk about what is up next in this trial and how effective the defense is and how effective we think the Commonwealth is. So stay tuned. Be right back.
Mic check, Roberta strides through the static haze. True crime Gotham where the shadows play their plays. Fraudsters fold when a spotlight beams. Fact focused queen busting propaganda schemes. Glass shatter lies echoes through the streets. Standing for victims, giving voice their beats. NYC Post, truth sharp as night. Roberta exposing she's the anti-fraud light. Hard task warrior, dissecting state and defense. Twisted innocence, claims breaking pretense. Gotham's truth seeker cuts clean with the blade. Facts in the forefront, no justice gets swayed. Cold facts drip heavy, real talk unfurls. Cracking cases open like oysters with pearls. Innocence gimmicks crumble to dust in the wind. For victims, her creed, justice till the end. Headphones blazing, she drops heavy artillery. Narratives twisted, meet blunt object civility. Roberta got receipts that unravel the ploy. Exposing the lies these fraudsters deploy. Glass shatters lies, echoes through the streets. Standing for victims, giving voice their beats. NYC Post, truth sharp as night. Roberta exposing she's the anti-fraud light.
Okay. I am back. So Hank Brennan did a redirect where he attempted to focus the, hold on one second. The jury's attention on the evidence in this case. Did it work? Let's take a listen. Actually, I have the wrong. Hold on one second. So many tabs up. Here we go. Yay, success. So was this successful? Let me know what you think. Let's listen to some of it on a little increased speed.
No.
When you went outside to get in your truck and follow the tow truck back to Canton, did you have any information whatsoever that there was any animus or animosity between Brian Higgins and John O'Keefe?
No.
After speaking to witnesses and the defendant at that point, when you got back into your truck to go to Canton, did you have any information that there was any animosity between Brian Albert and John O'Keefe?
No.
We've already talked about, out of order, your return back to Canton, the Sallyport, and then you and Mr. Proctor going out to dinner and going back. So I'm going to skip all of that. After you went home that night, did your investigation continue?
Yes.
How long do investigations continue for?
Until they are completed and exhausted, sometimes years, sometimes decades.
If you were to receive new information tomorrow, would you consider?
What a great answer. And if you got evidence that anyone else did this, would you reopen this investigation? If there was any evidence pointing to anyone else in this case that wasn't, say, like, a hired gun for the defense, like the ARCA witnesses, who only said they didn't need any more evidence to conduct their experiments. They only needed the evidence given to them by the feds, and the feds and the defense are essentially the same, we found out. They're like, no, we don't need any more evidence to actually test. We were just using this tiny window, tiny little bit.
Consider it.
Absolutely.
When you write police reports, is there a time limit on when you can file a report?
No.
Throughout this case, did you write a number of reports over time?
Yes.
Did you engage in tasks after the case began?
Yes.
Have you engaged in tasks recently?
Yes.
As you were investigating this case, did you speak to a number of witnesses?
Yes, I did.
Did you consider reports that were provided by other troopers who interviewed witnesses?
Yes.
Mr. Proctor was the case manager of this case?
Yes.
You were his supervisor?
Yes.
Were there other troopers who participated in this case?
Yes.
Do you know whether or not Lieutenant O'Hara participated in this case?
I do know.
You do know?
I do know
Did
that he
he?
participated. Yes.
Did he?
Yes.
Do you know if he had a team with him of other troopers?
Yes.
Do you know if Trooper Prince engaged in any interviews?
I do know. Yes.
Are you familiar with the name Nick Gianturco? Garino, I saw.
Yes, I am.
And do you know if he engaged in any tasks in this case?
I do know. Yes.
What did he engage in generally?
He generally conducted the digital forensics portion of the investigation, extractions.
Trooper Keefe, is that a name familiar?
Yes, it is.
And do you know whether or not he was involved?
Yes, I do know.
Were there a number of other troopers who were involved in different aspects of this case?
Yes, there are a number of different ones.
Trooper Evan Brent?
Yes.
But I mean, there's just no evidence. You know, they pulled up also a picture of, which you've never seen before. I don't remember seeing it last time, of David Yannetti being a talking head on Fox, saying, "I truly hate that man." Who likes David Yannetti or Alan Jackson, who's not a free Karen reader? Who would warm to these people who spearhead a witness harassment campaign? That's what I want to know. But, you know, they're going to try to make Proctor the sole person involved. And this was so many different police officers were involved in this investigation.
Did you look or seek other information after you left the defendant's house?
Yes.
Did you look for other witness statements?
Yes.
Did you try to obtain further evidence?
Yes, we did.
Was there an interview with firefighter Timothy Nuttall on February 8th?
Yes, there was.
That was about 10 days after the incident?
Approximately, yes.
Did you learn any statements from him in addition to the earlier statements you learned that added to your investigation?
Yes.
I'm going to allow it.
And do you remember what Timothy Nuttall told you on February 8th, 2022 about any statements of the defendant?
So folks, again, this is being offered not for the truth of the statement, but simply to show that the information was provided to the police.
Yes, Mr. Nuttall was one.
It's being offered not for the truth of the matter, but it happens to also be true. Yuri, she did say, I hit him, and she did. She did hit him.
3, I believe.
So talk about Mr. Nuttall, please.
Mr. Nuttall told me that the defendant stated, I hit him.
Was that information different than the statements that you were first learned about that she had allegedly made earlier that night?
Yes, it was.
Did you interview firefighter Daniel Whitley on February 8, 2022?
I did.
When you spoke to him, do you remember whether he shared any statements about the defendant telling him anything about her interaction with Mr. O'Keefe at the end of that night?
I believe that he stated that they got into a fight.
Do you remember the words that he used when he described that fight?
I do not remember the exact words. Those will be reflected in my police report.
Would the police report potentially refresh your recollection?
Potentially.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. Hand you a document. I do not want you to read from it.
Okay.
I want you to look at it, determine whether it refreshes your memory, and then I'll ask you if it refreshes your memory. If it does, I'll ask you about it. If it doesn't, then I won't.
Okay, sir.
After reviewing the report, does it refresh your memory about your conversation with Daniel Whitley on February 8, 2022 about statements made by the defendant to him?
Yes.
And could you share with us what the statements were as related by Mr. Whitley back on February 8, 2022?
The statement was,
Okay, jurors, this is an offer for the truth that's contained in the statement, simply to show that this information was provided to the police.
the defendant made a statement questioning whether Mr. O'Keefe was still alive.
And anything about the nature of their disagreement?
Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant got into an argument.
So for the same purpose.
As you're learning this information, does it in any way shape your continued investigation?
Yes, it further supports witness statements. It further supports and corroborates information that we're learning. The more information we collect, the stronger the case becomes.
Did you interview a person by the name of Anthony Flamate?
Yes, I did.
And when you spoke to him, do you recall whether he shared any statements that the defendant made to him?
Yes.
And do you recall what those statements were?
I do have a general recollection of what they were, but
I don't want you to guess. Would your report potentially help your memory?
yes, it would.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
After looking at your report, does that refresh your memory at all?
Yes, it does.
And when you were learning information to shape your investigation, did you consider anything that Anthony Flamati told you?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And what did he tell you that the defendant told him that helped shape your investigation?
Objection.
I'm going to see counsel inside. Just a minute.
Okay, the defense desperately wants to keep all this damning evidence against Karen Reed out and keep the focus on these shadowy
Digital information that we
videos of
were,
Brian Higgins.
seeking as well.
I mean, they're just shadowy in that they look, it's surveillance video. Surveillance video of my cat might look menacing. But I mean, to me, I don't know how you guys took it, but to me, it seemed like a guy, walking in and out of the police station, walking around on his phone, what people do, moving cars, what he did before every snowstorm, moved cars, the police station. I mean, this is so thin what they have, so thin.
Was the potential data from the defendant's Lexus important to the team of investigators?
Extremely important.
And did any of your team or the team pursue that black box, so-called black box data?
Yes, we did.
You were asked whether you interviewed or present for interviews of Nicole and Brian Albert?
Yes.
And after you spoke to them, including and considering all of the prior information you had, was there any evidence that John O'Keefe went into 34 Fairview Road on January 29, 2024?
There was not.
Okay. I mean, it's just,
Relative
was there
to
any
information,
evidence that pointing to anyone else? No. Or Karen Reed's taillight found, and they tried to make it seem like until Proctor got to the Sallyport with the taillight pieces alone, they weren't found. But how would they be found when he's with the car in the Sallyport? I mean, are they saying he rushed back there? I mean, it was just kind of a real trick on the jury, trying to elicit testimony from Bukhenik saying, well, they were found after Proctor saw, after he had the car in the Sallyport. The CERT team is on the scene. How are you going to plant evidence at the scene? It's just not possible, or it's not unlikely. It's not possible. And the defense team has not presented any theory incorporating the evidence in this case that anyone else did this that works. So I want to thank Tammy for buying me a coffee. I want to thank Shelly for supporting the channel via Venmo. I appreciate you guys' support. This is all listener supported channel. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment. I do read all your comments. The links are in the description of this episode. If you're enjoying channel and the output, please consider supporting the channel. You can become a Patreon member. Buy me a coffee is a great way to support the channel. Venmo.
that could be stored in the computer systems on Alexis. Do you know which troopers, or do you know if Trooper Galino was involved in any process regarding that?
Yes, I do know. And yes, he was involved in conducting that portion of the investigation.
As part of the investigation, was it important or was it considered to look at John O'Keefe's phone to see if there was any specific or particular information on it that would be helpful?
Yes, it would be.
What were you looking for? What was the team looking for on Mr. O'Keefe's call?
Well, the all-encompassing data includes location of the device. It includes communication, the party's identity with whom an individual could possibly be communicating. In this case, Mr. O'Keefe, his text messages, phone calls, emails, other applications like Signal and WhatsApp could have been also in use.
How about voicemails?
Voicemails, yes.
Did you ever review or consider any of those things that you just mentioned in your investigation?
Yes, I did.
Speaking of interviewing witnesses, did you, along with Michael Proctor, interview Katie McLaughlin on January 30th, 2022?
Yes, I did.
Was this the very next day?
Yes, it is.
And as part of your investigation and the direction and scope of your investigation, did you consider the interview with her and what she might have told you?
Yes, it
And
was.
when you were speaking with her the very next day, is there any statements that she attributed to the defendant that you considered in the next days of your investigation?
Yes, there was.
Did you remember what she told you the defendant said that was part of your consideration for your future investigation?
Yes, I hit him.
Remember that the statement is not being offered for the truth of the statement, but simply to show that the information is provided.
Right. And it goes like that. I'm not going to belabor this any longer, but it goes like that. Don't look at it for the truth of the matter. It just happens to be true. So I'm just curious, how do you guys feel that this is going? Obviously, we're still in the early days with the Commonwealth's case. The defense could, but blow it out of the park. I just don't think they're making any real traction with any of these witnesses. That's why I call it no traction Jackson. But I didn't think they did much damage last time when we got a hung jury. So what I've seen in both cases has been weak for the defense, but these innocence fraud campaigns are powerful and they do touch these jurors, and people do not live in a vacuum. Our courts, unfortunately, do not exist in a vacuum. Rockstar 60 thinks it's going great for the Commonwealth. Amy Gill thinks it's completely different. I think certainly the shock factor is out, and it was a big deal was made of it that the Sallyport video was mirrored last time, and the press ran with it. Taterbug says it's like they're spinning their wheels in the mud, Roberto. That's what it feels like. I can tell. I think this is it's a really small. I don't think any people wanted to come back. Today, the only way I can say it was there were some great little moments, but for a whole day of AJ, you just wanted him to sit down. And then at the end, when he did his recross examination at the end, we went to 4:00 and Judge Canoni told Alan Jackson, enough. And he's like, oh, just a few more questions. And it wasn't a few more. He wouldn't sit down. I thought someone bring out Sandman and a cane, like the Gong Show, and tap dance him off the stage. Give him the hook. Enough. This guy will not sit down. You think why, PN, do you think the Commonwealth is doing terrible? I'm just curious. If anything, there was a great part today where, again, he got to recategorize the text messages. He's like, look, is your client going after? He's like, I wouldn't consider this Higgins had any interest in your client. It's a great part with Bukhenik. Maybe I'll go over it tomorrow morning. But he's like, look, it wasn't Higgins was so interested. They met up. Higgins was so into Karen Reed. When they finally met up in person, it was just like no chemistry, and he didn't jump on her. Why, if he was so interested in her, didn't he just jump at the opportunity? They're alone. John O'Keefe is off the scene. He could have had her, nothing happened. mean, that's not a guy who's obsessed with a woman. He's like, oh, yeah. It was awkward. It was teenager-ish and awkward. And it was, as Bukhenik pointed out today in cross-examination, it was his client pursuing. He's like, no, I don't really see it as Higgins. It's your client. He was really being the pursuer. It's like there was a few maybe flirtatious things said or complimentary things said, but it was Karen Reed pursuing Higgins. I mean, I'm sure that, Linda Kenny Bodden, who was the prosecutor on Phil Spector after Alan Jackson, who's obviously very close or friendly with Alan Jackson. People have all sorts of reasons why she's been on Team Karen Reed. Strangely, someone close with Alan Jackson would be hyping up Team Karen Reed. But if you want to get clicks and views and make money from this case, that's the money-making side. But I don't think any of these lawyers really think that Karen Reed didn't do it. There's no evidence pointing to anyone else. Yeah, make it make sense. But all these innocence fraud campaigns are equally dumb. So that's what I have it for today. I'm going to keep it short and sweet for today. I'll be back tomorrow at 9 in the morning or a little before 9. And we'll watch the trial together. Hopefully we'll get to see some testimony tomorrow. I know we won't get to see the kids, but some testimony hopefully will come in tomorrow. Have a great night, everyone. Please hit the thumbs up on your way out. Support the channel. Links are in the description of this episode. I'll see you all tomorrow at 10 to 9 in the morning, Eastern time. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for listening.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, gin, like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim.